John bought his peaceful lake cabin to escape city noise, not to start a neighborhood war. Every morning, the water reflected golden sunlight, the sound of birds blending with the breeze. It was paradise until Karen moved in next door. At first, she seemed harmless, always waving with a fake smile and saying, "We like to keep our community neat." But soon, she started slipping anonymous notes under his door about lawn height, mailbox color, even how he parked his truck. John tried to stay calm. He had moved here after his wife's passing, needing quiet. But Karen and her self-proclaimed HOA board couldn't stand anyone who didn't bow to their rules. Things took a darker turn one Friday morning when John came home from town to find her standing at the end of his driveway, arms crossed, eyes cold. His truck couldn't pass. She'd blocked it with a chain and 2 cones. "You didn't pay your HOA fees," she said smugly. John frowned. "I'm not even part of your HOA." Karen smiled wider. "Oh, you are now. We voted you in." That was the moment John realized peace was over. He walked back to his cabin, heart pounding, trying to calm his anger. But as the lake reflected Karen's truck parked like a guard at his gate, one thought grew louder in his mind: this wasn't just about rules. This was about control, and Karen had just made a mistake she'd regret forever. The next morning, John woke up to hammering sounds. From his window, he saw Karen's hired men digging by his driveway, installing a wooden HOA sign that read "Private Access, HOA Members Only." John stepped out, jaw tight. "You're trespassing!" he shouted. Karen crossed her arms. "Actually, this entire stretch belongs to the HOA now. We've redrawn the boundary lines." John couldn't believe it. She had actually filed fake paperwork to claim his driveway as shared access. The sheriff said it was a civil matter. Until proven otherwise, he couldn't intervene. Karen smirked when she heard that. Over the next few days, John felt trapped. Delivery trucks turned away, his guests couldn't visit. And even garbage pickup was stopped. Karen watched from her porch, sipping iced tea like a queen guarding her kingdom, but John wasn't the man she thought he was. Before retiring, he had served 20 years in the county's road management department. He knew every inch of public land and every legal loophole. That night, as Karen's porch light flickered across the lake, John pulled out old county maps and surveyed deeds. There it was, the truth. The driveway wasn't HOA property. It was private. The next morning, John smiled for the first time in weeks. He wasn't just going to take back his driveway. He was going to teach Karen what happens when someone tries to own what isn't theirs. And this time, he wouldn't knock, he'd plow through. John spent the next 2 days preparing in silence. He fixed his old snowplow, replaced its rusted blades, and checked the engine. Neighbors peeked through their curtains, whispering about what might happen next. Karen, confident in her fake HOA power, laughed to anyone who'd listen. "That man's too scared to fight me," she bragged. But early Sunday morning, fog hung over the lake like a curtain, and Karen woke up to a deep rumble outside. She ran to her window. Her cones and chains lay crushed under the giant steel front of John's truck. The plow blade gleamed as sunlight broke through the mist. John didn't stop. He drove straight down his driveway, clearing every sign, every barrier she'd built. The wooden private HOA sign snapped in half like a matchstick. Karen ran outside, waving her arms. "You'll pay for this," she screamed. John simply said, "I already did." The neighbors who had silently suffered began to cheer quietly. For the first time, someone had stood up to her. Karen dialed the sheriff, but when they arrived, John showed the original land documents, official and stamped. Karen's face fell. Her fake claim was now evidence of fraud. As she argued with the officers, John walked back to his porch, heart pounding with relief. But he didn't know Karen wasn't done. She was about to take revenge in a way that would threaten everything he'd built. Karen filed a complaint, claiming John damaged HOA property and threatened her safety. She rallied a few loyal neighbors and demanded his eviction. Flyers appeared on mailboxes labeling him a danger to the community. John felt humiliated. He'd just started to heal from years of loneliness after losing his wife, and now his peace was shattered again. Late one night, he heard footsteps near his dock. He ran out with a flashlight and saw tire marks. Karen's friends had dumped bags of trash and old furniture into the lake to prove his property was a mess. It broke him. Not with anger, but sadness. How far could one person go just to feel powerful? John spent the next morning cleaning the water line alone. But as he worked, he saw something glittering under the mud, a piece of broken wood with faded paint, private HOA. He smiled. That broken sign reminded him of something his wife once said: "You can't fight fire with anger, John. You fight it with truth." He stood up, determination replacing grief. He'd fight Karen, but not with rage, with proof, and when he was done, she wouldn't just lose the battle. She'd lose her title as the self-appointed queen of the lake. John documented everything: pictures, recordings, timestamps. He went to the county courthouse with calm determination. A young clerk helped him file a formal complaint, backed by property deeds and video evidence. Within a week, an investigator visited the lake community. Karen's face turned pale when the county officer asked to see her HOA charter. She had none, it was never registered. Her power existed only because people were too scared to question it. When the officer announced that the HOA was legally invalid, whispers rippled through the neighborhood. Neighbors who once avoided John now walked over to thank him. The fear had finally cracked. That evening, Karen stood on her porch. Furious but silent. For the first time, she had no words, no rules, no control. John watched the sunset over the lake, the sky painted gold and red. Peace was finally returning, but the next morning, he discovered her final act of defiance. She had parked her car sideways, completely blocking the lake dock. A fresh sign hung from her windshield: "Enjoy your victory, Sheriff." She didn't know it yet, but she'd just written her own ending. John didn't yell. He didn't call the police. He simply started his truck. The sound echoed across the lake. Karen rushed out, shouting, but this time, he didn't stop. Slowly, carefully, he pushed the dock into the water, the wood creaking as it drifted away, taking her sign and her defiance with it. Karen stood frozen. Neighbors stepped out, stunned. The dock floated peacefully into the center of the lake, reflecting the orange morning sun. John parked, stepped out, and said softly, "Now it's really public property." No one spoke. Even Karen stayed silent, watching as her own symbol of control drifted away, powerless. That day, the HOA dissolved. Letters of apology slipped under John's door from neighbors who had once sided with her. The lake was quiet again, truly this time, but deep down, John knew peace wasn't just about silence. It was about earning the right to live without fear. And he had done that, not by breaking laws, but by standing for what was right. Weeks later, the cabin returned to calm. The air smelled of pine and wet soil, and ducks glided across the glassy lake. John repaired the dock and invited everyone for a small barbecue. Laughter filled the air for the first time in years. Karen sold her house quietly and left town. No farewell, no notes. Just gone. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, John sat by the water, watching the new dock he rebuilt stronger than before. His reflection smiled back at him, a man who'd fought not out of anger, but dignity. He whispered to himself, "Peace isn't given. It's defended." The lake shimmered, carrying away the last traces of conflict, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you loved the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.